In this project, I'm going to show you how to build an e-commerce cart system using React.js. So first I'll give you the demo of the project. So here on the left hand side, you can see I have the products list section, and on the right hand side, I have the cart section. So on the products list section over here, you can see I have the individual products put up over here. All right. Now for each product, we have a product image, the product name, the product price, and the option to add the product to our cart. All right. So let's say I click on add to cart over here. So you see the moment I clicked on add to cart, this product here got added to the cart over here. And because I added this product to the cart, this add to cart button here becomes disabled, meaning that I cannot add this product again to the cart because it's already present in the cart. So in that case, if the user wanted to increase the quantity of the same product that they wanted to purchase, then they could just simply go over here in the cart and click on the plus icon over here. If they click on the plus icon, then you can see the number here or the quantity becomes 2 and the price also doubles up. Alright, it was 549, so 549 into 2 is 1098. Similarly, I can increase it as many times as I want, and the price will also keep increasing accordingly as per the quantity of the product being purchased. Alright, and at the same time, we can also decrement this, basically decrement the quantity. So you can see as the quantity gets decremented, the price also lowers down according to the quantity. And after that, we can also remove a particular product from the cart. So let's say I click on remove here. And you see that gets removed and we get the message cart is empty. So I can add as many products I want. You see here, I can add different products and it keeps getting added over here in the cart. And I can increase the quantity of the products. Alright, I can decrement them as well. And one more thing that I need to show you is, let's say if the quantity is 1, in that case, if I decrement, then I want this product to be removed from the cart. So if I click on decrement now, considering that the quantity is 1, if I click on decrement, then that product gets removed from the cart itself. Alright, which makes sense. So all of this is what we are going to build in this project, and I'm going to use the use reducer hook in React.js to very efficiently manage the state for our different requirements. And so you're going to learn a lot of good practices by building this project. So without any further ado, let's get started. Alright, so over here you can see on the left hand side I have my code editor opened up, and on the right hand side I have the browser opened up. So whatever I code over here is going to be rendered on the browser here at the right hand side. Alright, so I have initialized this project using Vite, and this is a basic React project wherein right now you can see we are in the app.jsx file, which is within the src folder, and we only have 3 files present over here, which is the app.css, app.jsx, and the main.jsx. Alright, so just know that in this project, we are going to be more centered toward the logic and coding part, and we'll not be so much oriented towards the styling part, because all we care about is actually building that e-commerce cart system by following the good practices in React. Alright, so this is going to be more focused on the logic and the main coding part. Alright, so first what we need to do is, if you remember, over here on the left hand side, we had the products list page, and on the right hand side, we had the cart. So we need 2 sections, one for the products and one for the cart. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. What I'll do here first is, in the src, I'll create a folder named product, and similarly I'll create another folder named cart. Alright, and then within the product, of course, I'll have a file named index.js. Similarly, within the cart, I'll also have an index.js file here as well. Alright, now with that done, let me just go to my product index.jsx. I'll collapse this file explorer and let me just initialize this component. I'll write RAFCE and press enter, and I'll name this product, of course. Alright, and I can remove this from here. So by pressing RAFCE, we get to generate an arrow function because of the ES7 React snippets extension. You can install that in the VS Code extensions page over here. Alright, so after this, we need to do the same thing for the cart index.js page as well. So here I'll write RAFCE and I'll name this as cart. Alright, let's remove this from here. Now with that done, let's go to the app.jsx file, and here let's actually start by importing both the product and cart components. Alright, so within this div, I will first write product, and this will auto import the product component. Alright, you can see it over here. And similarly, I'll import the cart as well, the cart component, and that's been imported over here as well. Alright, so the left hand side is going to be for the product, and the right hand side is going to be for the cart. Then over here in the div, I'll give this a class name of nothing but PC container. PC over here refers to product cart, and hyphen is container. Alright, and upon saving this, seems like I'm getting an error over here because Vite expects that our index.js over here it needs to have the .jsx extension. So I'll just quickly update that over here, JSX, and this will also be JSX. Alright, if I save this and I refresh, alright, so on refreshing, you can see we get our product and cart over here. So in the app.jsx, you can see our product and cart components are imported here, so we get product and cart here. And if you weren't able to see this after refresh, you can just go to your development server and you can restart it just in case. Alright, so now I'll just quickly go to my app.css, and here you can see I already have some styles placed over here for the body, which has a font family, background color, and a color of white to keep the text white in color. And I've also imported a font over here from the Google Fonts website. Alright, so you can add whatever font you wish to add over here. So in here, I just want to do one more thing, which is I want to select the PC container class. And to this, I just want to give this a display of flex and a width of 100%. Alright, now with that done, after giving this a display of flex, they are placed in a row-like fashion. Now I just need to make sure that the product takes around 70 to 80% of the space and the remaining is taken by the cart. Alright, so let's go to the app.jsx, and first let's start by retrieving all the products. To do that, I'm going to use the products API from the dummy JSON website. Alright, so what I'll do first is over here I'll write use effect, and then I'll give this a dependency array which will be empty. So on component mount, I want to call that dummy JSON API and retrieve all the products from that API. Alright, so here I'll first create a function named get products. This is going to be an async function because it will call an API. It will be an arrow function, and I'll call this function right over here within the use effect itself. And then within this function, I'll write const res equals await axios.get, and I'll put in the dummy API, the dummyjson.com/products. Alright, and now one more thing, if you notice, I actually haven't imported Axios. Let's quickly go ahead and do that. So I'll quickly open my terminal, and right over here, I'll write npm I axios. Alright, then let's wait for it to get installed. Alright, so this has been installed, and I'll cut this, and I'll just write axios again, and it will auto import it here on top. Alright, now with that done, let's just check if you're getting the products or not. So here I'll simply write console.log res. Alright, if I refresh, then I open my console, and over here you can see we get our product itself, and it's present in the data. So it's an object, and within the object it's present in the data object. Right here we have limit, skip, total, and the products property, within which we have all the products. Alright, so now our job is to display this on the screen. So I'll cut this first. Now to display this on the screen, if you remember, I said we will be using use reducer to manage the state of the application. So what I'll do is I'll first create a reducer. Basically, I'll first initialize the use reducer. So right over here, I'll write const, and this will be use reducer, and the use reducer hook takes a reducer function and an initial state. Alright, don't worry, we will create both of these soon. This is nothing but a function that is going to update the initial state. The initial state is what we are going to provide, and the reducer function, the job of the reducer function is to update the initial state based on whatever actions we perform, such as add to cart, increment or decrement the number of products, or remove the products, and so on. The reducer always updates the initial state, or basically it maintains the current state, or basically it updates whatever the current state is. Alright, and after that the use reducer returns us nothing but the updated state and a dispatch action. Alright, so first I'll just quickly create the initial state right over here. So I'll write let initial state. This will be an object, and within this object there will be two properties. First is the products, which will be an empty array, and second is going to be the cart, which will also be an empty array. Alright, and then right under here I'll write const reducer. I'll create the reducer function, which is going to be an arrow function, and the reducer over here automatically takes in the state and the action. So the reducer present within the use reducer, it automatically takes the state and the action as its parameters. Alright, so then the next part is I need to make sure that whatever products I'm retrieving from this API call, I want to add it in our products array over here in the initial state. So to do that, what I'll do first is I'll remove this console log, and then here after getting all the products, I'll write dispatch Right, so this dispatch over here, because this is going to help us update the state based on the payload that we send on the dispatch, as well as the type of data that we are trying to update. So you'll understand as I write the code. Over here in the dispatch, I'll actually send a data wherein the type will be nothing but add product, and the payload is going to be res.data.products. All right, simple. Then in the reducer over here, I can actually create a switch statement, and the switch statement will go through the cases based on the action.type. All right, so we are receiving the action in the reducer itself because the use reducer sends the state and action by default, and the action over here is going to be passed from the dispatch. So in the dispatch, this part which I'm sending, this entire object part, this is nothing but the action over here. All right, so what I can do over here is, based on action type, I want to utilize the switch statement, so I can create different cases, right, in a switch statement. So for the case of add product, what I can do is I need to update this product state in the initial state with nothing but this payload that we're getting over here, this payload from the API. So for the case of add product, I can simply return an object wherein I'll first spread the state. This state is nothing but the current state that we have. Right now the current state is the initial state itself. So when I spread in the state within the object, we get nothing but the products and cart. And after spreading in the state, I want to specifically update this state by updating the products. So I'll first spread in the state values, and then I will update the products. So I'll select the products, and to this I'll write action.payload. All right, pretty simple. So the action.payload is nothing but this payload over here, the res.data.products. All right, now this is going to make sure that in the switch statement, if you remember, I said the reducer updates the current state. The reducer updates the state returned by the use reducer. So the reducer's work is to always update the state. So here in the return, it's returning nothing but the new updated state based on the type that we have specified. So now the initial state will get updated from this part to nothing but this over here, wherein the cart will be empty, but the products will be populated with the list of products. And just to show you that, what I'll do is I'll copy this state, and I'll just, let's say, console log it over here, console.log state, and I'll paste the state. Now if I inspect, you'll notice something. In the console, you can see we get the state, and in the state over here, we have the products. All right, you can see we have all the products. That means we actually have the products in our state now. All right, so now what we can do is, I'll just remove this from here. Now we can actually populate the products over here. Let's first actually populate the products. So what I'll do is, over here in the products component, I'll send this a few props. So first will be products. This is going to be nothing but state.products, because if you remember, in the state we had the products property. All right, so for now we can just send this prop, and then what I'll do is I'll go to my product index.jsx. All right, so here first of all I will destructure the products prop, and then I'll remove this from over here, and here I'll add curly braces. Then here I'll map through the products, so products.map. Then for each product I actually want to perform some logic. So here I'll return nothing but a DOM element, so I'll write div. This div will represent the individual product. Over here I'll give this div nothing but a class name of product wrapper. All right, then the product is first going to have an image, so an image tag. This will have a width of nothing but 100%, then a height of 300, and then an src of nothing but product.thumbnail, and lastly an alt attribute which will be empty. All right, so now with that, just with that, you can see we get all our individual product images. All right, so in the API, the .thumbnail property of a particular object contains the image, right? So we have already rendered the image. Now let's render the details of the products. So I'll create another div. This will have a class name of nothing but product details. Then within this, I'll create a div. This div will have nothing but product.title, and you can see the title gets rendered here. Similarly, paste this here, and this will be product.price. All right, we can see the price here as well. Now after that, I'll create another div which is going to be for the action button, which is nothing but add to cart. So here I'll create button, and then within this I'll write add to cart. Alright, you can see it over here. Then to this button over here, I'll give this a class name of nothing but add product. Alright, so let's just keep it like this for now. And also one more thing is over here to the main parent div, I need to give this a class name of product container. Alright, now with that done, let's actually go ahead and style the products page. Let's add the styling for all of these classes. So here I'll actually create another file named product.css, and here I'll just add a few styles. But before I do that, let me first import it over here. So this will be import product.css. Alright, then let's go to product.css. Then here we first collapse that. First I'll select the product container, and then to this I'll give it a width of 80%. Alright, so the products section will be 80% and the cart will be 20%. So this is going to be 80%. Then a display of grid, and then a grid template columns, and we want 3 columns, so 3, and each of them will be 1 fractional unit. Alright, there you go. We can see we have this grid structure over here. So if I reduce the size of this, you can see the images are over here. And then I'll actually select the product wrapper class, and to this I'll give it a margin of 10px. Remember, you can style things even in a much better way, but we are more focused towards the use reducer hook and on adding the logic in a good way, so I'm not that concerned with the styles. You can update this however you want. So, and after this I'll select the product details. Here I'll write display of flex, then justify content of space between. Alright, and then a padding of 5px top and bottom and 15px left and right. Now with that done, I'll select the add product button, so that class over here. Then I'll give this nothing but a border of 1px solid black, and then a border radius of 5px, then a padding of 5px, then a background color of light green, then width of fit content, then margin of 5px, and then a cursor of pointer. Alright, now you can see that our styles for the button has also been added. Now we can see all the products have their respective stylings. Alright, and now with the products actually being visible, let's go ahead and add the add to cart functionality. And then once the product gets added to the cart, let's try to display the list of products in the cart section over here. So I'll actually go to my app.jsx. Alright, now in the app.jsx, I want to add the add to cart functionality, so that when I click on add to cart for a particular product, it should get added to this cart array. Alright, and we know that the add to cart button is there within the product component, but I'll create that function over here and pass it down as a prop to the product component. Alright, and I'll create that add to cart function over here because here we are able to access the state and all that. So to just keep everything in one place, I'll create the function for add to cart over here. So first I can write const add to cart. This will be an arrow function. Alright, and then to this add to cart, I want to be able to send the product that I'm clicking on to this add to cart as an argument. So this add to cart needs to receive the product that we are trying to add as an argument. And to successfully do that, I'll first pass this add to cart as a prop to our products component, to our product component, and then I'll go to my product component. Then here I will destructure the add to cart function, and then I will pass that add to cart function to this button over here on click. So I'll write on click, and on click I will call the add to cart function, and to this add to cart I will pass nothing but the product over here that we are mapping through, basically the product that we click on or the product that we are trying to add to the cart. So this product over here, I will pass it as an argument right over here. Alright, now with that done, I will go back to my app.jsx, and here on clicking the add to cart I should be receiving that particular product. Alright, so the next thing would be to take this product and store it in our state. Alright, basically in our cart state. To do that, I need to pass it to the reducer, and we know just how we did it over here. To store anything in the state by using the use reducer hook, we have to invoke the dispatch. Alright, so I'll again copy this, paste it here. Then on dispatch, I'll send a type and a payload. So over here, for adding the product to the cart, of course, the type will be nothing but add to cart, alright, and the payload will be nothing but the product that we receive from the parameter, alright. And then let's copy this type, go up to our reducer, and then here I'll actually create the next switch statement, basically the next case, alright. So case add to cart, and in this case what I can do is first I'll initialize a variable named product, which is going to be equal to nothing but the action dot payload, alright, which is nothing but this product itself, which is the product that we're trying to add, alright. So after that, what we need to do is we need to add a quantity property to our product, so we can write product dot quantity. Doing this will automatically add the quantity property to our product. Even if it doesn't exist, it will add it, and to that we'll give it a value of 1, because the moment I add a product to the cart, its quantity should become 1, right? And then if we increment or decrement, it should increase or decrease accordingly. But the moment I add a product to the cart, its quantity should become 1. Then next I will add another property to this, which is the total price. So product dot total price equals nothing but the product dot price, alright. So the first time I add the product to the cart, since the quantity is 1, so the total price is going to be nothing but the actual price of the product, alright. But if we increment, then it will be nothing but the price multiplied with the quantity. Then I'll create a variable let updated cart. This is going to be nothing but an array. This will actually contain the latest state of the cart, so that's going to be nothing but, first I'll destructure everything that's already there in the cart, so state.cart, and then I will add in the product, alright. So if the cart already had any pre-existing items, first destructure all of that and then add your new product, alright, the one that you're trying to add. And then since the reducer updates our current state, so we have to return an object because our initial state is an object, and then here we will destructure everything that's there in the state and the property that I want to update, which is the cart, and to the cart I will set the updated cart, right? So when add to cart action type is invoked, we are going to return a new state which will have the products as it is, and the cart will have the updated cart, which will include the new item or the new product I'm trying to add to the cart, alright. Now with that done, we can actually check if the product has been added to the cart or not. To do that, let's just say I'll console.log nothing but the state itself over here, because we just updated the state, right, with the cart. So let's say I'll open my console, inspect, and then console. Let's empty all of this up, and then let's say I click on add to cart. Alright, then on add to cart we get this state, and you can see the cart has also been populated, which includes the product which we actually tried to add, which is the iPhone 9. Alright, so this means our add to cart works perfectly fine. Now all we need to do is we need to display it over here. We need to display whatever that's there in the cart state right over here in the cart section. So I'll remove this console log from here. Then to the cart component, I'll actually pass a prop named cart, and this will contain nothing but the state.cart. Alright, then I'll go to my cart component, so right over here, and then here I'm going to first destructure the cart prop, which is going to contain the items added in the cart. And then over here first I'll give this parent div a class name of nothing but cart container, alright. Then I will remove this from here and I'll give this an h2 tag, and within this I'll write cart, alright. Then after that I'll add curly braces and I'll add a check where if cart.length is equal to 0, then we can simply display a message saying the cart is empty, alright. So you can see it over here. Now next, after this, I'll again add the curly braces, and here I will map through the cart. So cart.map, for each item I will return an element, return, and then within this I'll first create a div. This will have a class name of cart wrapper, alright. Then within the div I'll first add the image of the product, so img. This will have a width of 100%, then an src of item.thumbnail, and an alt property which will be empty, alright. So just to be able to view this image, let me click on add to cart, and there you go, you can see the image of the product that I tried to add. It's been added over here. Now let's add all the other properties or all the other elements. So next we need to add the cart info. This will have a class name of cart info, and then here create a div which will have nothing but item.title. Alright, and then I'll create another div. This will have a class name of right, because this will be the right section over here, which will contain the increment, decrement buttons, the quantity, and the price. Alright, so within this, I'll create another div. This div will have the increment button to increment the quantity, and this will have a class name of cart action. Alright, then let's say I'll just copy this div, paste this 2 more times, then this will be decrement, and this will be something else. So I'll add curly braces, I'll remove this class name from over here, and here I'll write item.quantity. Alright, you can see plus the quantity and decrement. And then right at the end, copy this again, paste this here, and I'll remove this class name. Alright, and instead of minus, this will have nothing but item.total price. Alright, there you go. Alright, then after completing the cart info, we can actually add the remove button. So I'll create a button. This will have a class name of remove product. Then over here, I'll write remove. Alright, so this remove button over here to remove this particular product from the cart. Now with that done, let's first style all these classes. So for that, over here in the cart, I will create another file named cart.css. Alright, then right over here in the index.js of the cart, what I'll do is I'll first import the cart.css. So import nothing but /cart.css. Alright, let's go back there. Then here I'll first select the cart container. This will have a width of 20%. Alright, then a display of flex direction of column, and align items of center. Alright, then I'll select the cart wrapper class. This will have a width of 70% and then a padding of 10px. Alright, so that should be it for cart wrapper. Then I'll select cart info, and over here I'll give this a display of flex. Basically I want to add this part and this part over here in a row like fashion. So display of flex, then justify content space between, and then width of 100%. Alright, after that I'll select the right class, which is for this part over here. Then to this I'll give it a display of flex, then a justify content of center, and then align items of center. Alright, then after that I'll select the cart action class. This will have a border of 1px solid black. So this is nothing but for the increment and decrement buttons. We reduce the size a bit. Alright, then a border radius of 5px, then a padding of 0px top and bottom, 5px left and right, then a background color of light green, and then a text align of center, then a font size of 12px, then a height of fit content, then a margin of 0 top and bottom and 5px left and right, and then a cursor of pointer and a color of black. Alright, so this looks fine now. And then I'll select the remove product class, which is this button over here, and to this I'm going to give it a border 1px solid, and then the color of black, and then a border radius of 5px, then a padding of 5px, then background color of light coral, width fit content, then a margin of 5px, and a font size of 12px, and then lastly a cursor of pointer as well. Right, so this looks fine now as well. Alright, so with that we are done with the styling for the cart section. Now after that, let's add the remaining functionalities for the increment, decrement, and remove button. So I'll first go to my app.jsx, then let's expand this a bit. Then over here I'll create another function named remove product. This will also be an arrow function, right? And this remove product will also receive the product as an argument, right? And we need this so that we can know which product we want to delete. And to receive that product, I'll pass that in the cart over here, right? Remove product. And then I'll go to the cart index.jsx, and over here I'll destructure the remove product function, And then over here in the button for the remove product, I'll write on click, and here I will simply invoke the remove product, and I will pass in nothing but the item over here, which is the particular cart item that I'm trying to remove, over here to the remove product as an argument. Alright, then after this I'll go back to my app.jsx, and over here in the remove product, as you guessed, I need to dispatch again. Basically I need to dispatch the product with a type and then remove that product in the reducer over here. So the same thing as add to cart. So I'll paste this over here, and instead of add to cart, I will call this remove from cart. Alright, and then the payload will remain product as well. Alright, then let's copy this, and I'll go up to my reducer. Then here I'll actually create another case for the remove from cart, and then here this will have a very simple logic. I'll straightforward return nothing but first everything that's already there in the state, and then the item from the cart that I'm trying to delete. So cart, and then state.cart.filter. Then for each item I will check item.id not equal to action.payload.id. Alright, so basically when I loop through all the items in the cart, if the item.id is not equal to the action.payload.id, then just remove that from our cart. So this means it will filter out and return all the other elements which did not satisfy this condition to nothing but the cart array of our state. Alright, so it will filter out the product that we are trying to delete from the cart. And in the action.payload, we know that we are receiving the product, so which is nothing but this one over here, the product, and we are checking on that product or the payload's ID with the item.id, and based on that we remove that particular product. Alright, pretty simple. And this is the updated state returned from the remove from cart. Alright, so now let's just test this out. So let's say I click on remove, and there you go, you see the product got removed and we got cart is empty again. Let's say I try to add again, this got added. If I remove, that gets removed as well. Alright, so our remove from cart also works perfectly fine. Now let's add the logic for increase quantity, basically increasing the quantity of the product. I'll just copy this, paste it here. I'll name this increase quantity. Alright, and this will receive nothing but the item or the product whose quantity we are trying to increase, and the type over here will be nothing but increase quantity. Alright, and the payload is going to be nothing but the item, should be small item. Alright, and then we'll copy this increase quantity and I'll pass it right over here to the cart component, and then I will go to my cart index.jsx, then I'll destructure that function out, the increase quantity, and then I'll go right over here to the plus icon. Over here I'll write on click, then I will invoke the increase quantity and I'll pass the item over here, basically the item we are trying to increase the quantity of. Alright, and then we can actually move back to our app.jsx just like that. Then here I'll just copy this, I'll go up to my reducer. Over here I will actually create another case. This will be increase quantity, and then over here I'll perform some logic. So the first thing I need to do is I need to retrieve that product whose quantity I'm trying to increase from the cart array state. Alright, because I should not be directly mutating the state, right? We should not directly mutate the cart state over here within the initial state. So first I'll take out the index based on the payload, based on the action.payload, which is nothing but the item itself or the product itself. So I need to make sure that I extract the item from the cart, and we can do that by utilizing the item's ID, right? Similar to how we did it over here, we checked action.payload.id. We will utilize this to find the index of the product or the item whose quantity I'm trying to increase from the cart array. So from the cart array, I want to first extract that product out or the item out whose quantity I want to increase. I'll write index equals state.cart.find index, and then I'm looking for that particular product. So here, if product.id is equal to action.payload.id. Alright, so whenever we loop through the entire cart, when the product.id is equal to the action.payload.id, then that is exactly the product whose quantity we are trying to increase, right? So we retrieve the index of that, and then what I'll do is I'll write let item equals state.cart of item. Alright, so now I have that particular item retrieved from the cart state itself. Now with that done, I'll simply return nothing but the updated state, which is going to be nothing but first I will spread the values of the state as it is. So I'll spread all of this, or whatever the current state value is going to be. And then since I want to update the cart, so cart, and in the cart, we know that the cart is an array. So I'll create an array. And first over here, I will destructure nothing but state.cart.slice from 0 to index. So when I do this, it means in the cart, I'm first destructuring all the elements from the position 0 till the position right before our index. So let's say we have 5 items in the cart, and the product whose quantity I'm trying to increase is the third item. So when we do this, we are spreading the items in the cart starting from position 0 till the second position. When we write index like this in slice, it extracts the position right before the index. So from 0 to 2, considering the index is 3. Alright, so if we had 5 elements in the cart, this will extract from 0 to 2. It will spread all that in the cart array. And we are doing this because basically after that, for the third item, I want to be able to create a new object over here. This is the item whose quantity we are trying to increase, right? So this one over here, first I will spread all the properties of the item, and then since we want to update the quantity, I'll write quantity and then item dot quantity plus 1. And then if we are increasing the quantity, we should also be increasing the total price. The total price will be nothing but, let me copy this part, item dot quantity plus 1 multiplied by the item dot price. Alright, so this will be nothing but the cart whose quantity I'm trying to increase. So every time we increase its quantity, we should also update its total price, which is going to be nothing but the latest quantity or the number of times we have added it into the price. Alright, and then here, if you remember, we first added all the items before the item we are trying to update in the cart array. Then we updated the particular cart item we were trying to update. And then after this, we need to spread in the rest of the elements in the cart. So if you remember, as I said, if there were 5 items in the cart, this will first spread from 0 to 2. Then we modify the third one, considering we wanted to modify the third one. So we modify the third one. Then of course, we need to spread the fourth and the fifth element as well, right? So right after modifying the third one, then over here, I'll spread the last 2 items as well, considering if there were 5 items. So state.cart.slice, nothing but index plus 1. So when we write index plus 1, so 3 plus 1 would be 4, considering if there were 5 elements. So when we only pass in one argument over here like this, then it makes sure that it slices all the elements from that index till the end. Alright, so this will extract out element number 4 and 5 both, considering that we had 5 elements in the cart. Alright, so this will be the updated state when we try to increase the quantity. And we are doing it like this because we do not want to mutate the state at all. We do not want to do something like this, like state.cart, and then to the state.cart itself, we start adding some, values, for example, a new object or something like that. So we should not do it like this, because in this case, we will be mutating the cart object directly, which can cause some issues. So we should update our state like this. In this case, it's not mutating any part of the cart state, and it's keeping everything segregated. Alright, so now let's just check if our increased quantity works. So if I add to cart and I go over here to the right side and I click on plus, oops, seems like we got an error. Let me just quickly inspect. Console, seems like at line number 35, cannot access item before initialization. Alright, sorry, this should be state.cart of index, not item, my bad. Alright, now if I add to cart and then let's say I try to increment, there you go, you see our quantity became 2 and our price became 1098. It doubled down, basically 549 into 2. Then if I increment this again, the price increase and the quantity also increases. Alright, so that works perfectly fine as well. Now we need to do the exact same thing for the decreased quantity as well, just that we need to put -1 over here for the quantity. Alright, so let's do that as well. First over here, I'll copy this function, paste it here, then I'll name this decrease quantity, and here I'll set the type as decrease quantity. Then I'll take this, pass it over here as a prop, the cart component. Then I'll copy this, I'll go to my cart index.jsx, and then over here I'll destructure the decrease quantity. Then similar to how we did it for the increase quantity, here for the decrement I will write on click and I will invoke the decrease quantity function, and to this as well I'll be passing the item. Alright, now with that done, let's go back to our app.jsx. Then over here in the reducer, I will do the exact same thing for the decrease quantity as well, just that the quantity should change. So copy this, I'll paste this here, I'll name this as decrease quantity, and instead of quantity +1, this should be -1, and for the total price also this should be -1, and then I'll save it. Alright, and now let's say I try to decrement. There you go, you see the quantity decremented and the price also rearranged itself. So since 2 items, so 549 into 2 is 1098. Similarly, if I go one more step back, this becomes 549. Alright, so our decrease quantity feature also works fine. Alright, so now with that done, there's actually one more small thing we need to add in the decrease quantity over here. So if you notice, when the quantity is 1 and I click on minus, then it goes down to 0. Well, that should not happen. What should happen is, if the quantity is 1 and if I click on minus, then we want that particular product to get removed from the cart itself. That would be a better user experience, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Refresh this, and then over here in the decrease quantity, I'll just add a simple check where if state.cart of index.quantity, if that quantity is already 1, so this means when I click on decrement, if the quantity is already 1, then it means it's going to go to 0, right? So before it goes to 0, we can return an updated state over here. We can directly return instead of going here. We can directly return over here. And here we can actually simply put the remove logic over here. So I'll copy this part. Alright, I'll come down here and I'll paste it right over here. Alright, and let's just make sure that we change the name of this because we already have item declared over here. So to not get things mixed up, let's just name this cart item. Alright, because of that, this will become cart item, and we can keep this action.payload.id, or we can also simply write this as item.id. Alright, because the item is nothing but that particular product we extracted from the cart state itself, right? So item.id would also point to that same ID, same as action.payload.id, right? Because that is the one we are trying to extract anyway. And also, since this part and this part are the same, why not just add the variable over here, item.quantity, right? So basically, if the quantity is already 1, then we are directly returning from here. We are returning the new state where we spread in all the values of the state, and then we just update the cart wherein we remove that particular cart item, right? The one that we are trying to decrement. And that's what happens when the quantity is already 1. So let's just test this out. If I add to cart, and now you see that the quantity is 1. So if I click on decrement, it should get removed. So if I click on decrement, it gets removed. Alright, so that part also works fine. Now one last thing we need to do is, so you can see when I add to cart, you see this doesn't get disabled. So we are again able to click on this and it gets added twice, which doesn't seem right. So we need to make sure that if I add a particular item to the cart, then we should not be able to add that particular item to the cart again, because we can only increment or decrement its quantity. We don't want it to be added again as a whole over here. Alright, so to fix that, it's pretty simple. We need to disable this, right? So I will go down here to my product, and onto the product, I will actually pass a prop named cart, and to this I'll pass the state.cart, because we can just compare that the product that I'm trying to add, if it's already there in the cart or not. If it's there, then just disable the button. Alright, that's why I'm passing the cart state to the product. So then I can go to my product index.jsx. Here I'll destructure the cart, and then I will go right over here to add to cart. Then I'll utilize the disabled property of the button. Then here I'll write cart.sum. Then for each item in the cart, I will compare if the item.id is equal to the product.id. Alright, so the product that I clicked, if that ID is equal to the item.id in the cart, then it means the product I clicked does exist in the cart. In that case, simply set the disable to true, because the sum is going to return true if this condition ends up matching. Alright, so if this condition matches, the sum will return true. So automatically, once I click on this, the state update happens, right? The reducer state updates, it adds an item to the cart, and when the component re-renders, it's going to map through the products again, and when it reaches the disabled property of that particular product, it's going to see that it's already there in the cart, then it's going to disable it all by itself. Alright, let's just test that out. If I refresh, alright, and then let's say I add this to the cart, and then after adding it, you can see the button here has been disabled and I cannot add it to the cart again. Alright, so that also works perfectly fine. Alright, so now with this, we are almost done with the project. There's just one very minor thing that I forgot to add. Well, if I go over here to our switch statement, so in our switch statement, we should always have a default case. That's exactly what we forgot to add. So over here at the end of the switch statement, I'll just add a default state, which will do nothing but return the state itself. Alright, it will return nothing but the current state itself. Alright, so in case by any chance if none of these actions trigger, then we can simply just return the current state itself. Alright, and with this, let me actually just expand this screen over here. Alright, so now with this, I think we are done with this project. So let's just test this out once. If I refresh, and let's say I add to cart, I add this to cart as well, I add this to cart as well, and I add this to cart as well. You can see the add part is working fine. And let's say I want to increase the quantity of this iPhone 9. This is getting increased, and as it gets increased, its pricing also increases. Same with this. This also works fine. Same with this, and same with this. Alright, now let's say I try to remove a product from the cart. So if I click on remove over here, this gets removed. If I try to remove this, this also gets removed. Alright, and if you notice, since these two are added in the cart, then if you check the add to cart button for these two items, they have been disabled, so I cannot add them to the cart again. Alright, now if I decrement, you can see the quantity decreases and the price also adjusts accordingly. Same with this over here. Then let's say I'll just remove this, and then let's say I decrement this one more time, and now since the quantity is 1, if I decrement, this should get removed from here and the add to cart button should become open again, or should not remain disabled again. So if I click on decrement or decrease quantity, you see it gets removed because the quantity was 1. We get the cart is empty message, and the add to cart button is visible all over again, so it's not disabled anymore. Alright, so this means our project works completely fine. So with that, that's all for this project, and I hope you found it insightful.